Hello and welcome! Yes, it's a Battlefleet Gothic video! Right, before I start, let me make you a solemn promise. Unlike last time, even though there are a whole bunch of toys laid out in front of me, this will not simply turn into a session of me playing with myself. This is a lore video, but it's not a paint-a-lore video. I'm not going to be painting more. This one I'm going to give you my full attention as I talk about the lore of Battlefleet Gothic. This is a game that is very near and dear to my heart. I've got, as you can see, a couple of fleets laid out here, a couple more tucked away in a box over there, and it is a game that I would say is perhaps integral to the lore of Warhammer 40,000 as it stands today. And in this video, I'm going to set out why I say that is. But so first, what is Battlefleet Gothic? Give my best Red Dwarf cat impression. What is it? Battlefleet Gothic was a game invented by Andy Chambers that first appeared in the pages of White Dwarf, and the idea behind it was essentially like a tall ships game. It was 19th century naval combat reimagined in space. It was very similar to kind of the Space Armada game that had come before, but there were definite influences of kind of Epic 40,000 that you could see in it as well. But beyond that as well, it was a new self-contained sandbox within the Warhammer 40,000 universe for games to be played in. The first appearance of what kind of would be the lore of Battlefleet Gothic appeared in the 2nd edition Chaos Codex, with the appearance of a planet by the name of Purgatory, very imaginatively named. The running narrative throughout kind of the 2nd edition Chaos Codex, the really cool one with the bright yellow colour with Abaddon brandishing his claw on the front cover, was kind of a boxed out narrative story of various Chaos Marines attacking this low-level Imperial world, and essentially you just got kind of snippets of, oh look, here's some Imperial soldiers desperately trying to survive while being murdered by Night Lords. Here's some Imperial soldiers being horribly, brutally slain by Iron Warriors. And then the very last kind of narrative section in that codex was a little bit about the aftermath of this chaos attack, which featured an Inquisitor turning up on the planet of Purgatory and determining that not only had the Chaos Forces massacred every Imperial soldier that was on the planet, but they had also made off with this top secret artifact that was hidden there, known as the Hand of Darkness. That was it. It was kind of featured in the 2nd edition codex, and then we never really heard much about it from then, until Battlefleet Gothic. But Battlefleet Gothic, what is it? Battlefleet Gothic is the Battlefleet for the Gothic sector. What's the Gothic sector? What is it? The Gothic sector is a subsector of the Segmentum Obscurus. So, in the 40k universe, they've decided to divide the galaxy up into 5 big chunks of pie, centered not around the center of the galaxy like you might think, but centered on Terra, because of course the galaxy revolves around the Sol system as far as humanity is concerned. But so they've subdivided the galaxy into these 5 sections: Segmentum Solar, Segmentum Pacificus, Segmentum Ultima, Segmentum Tempestus, and Segmentum Obscurus. Solar, Pacificus, Ultima, Tempestus, Obscurus. Yeah, I got them all. Cool. I can't count. Anyone who's watched my previous videos will attest. Within each of these segmentums, then, there are lots of smaller subsectors, and each of those subsectors has a battle fleet. There's a major kind of fleet base in each of the different segmentums. So, for example, Mars is the fleet base for the Segmentum Solar, with its massive shipyards cranking out Imperial ships. There's one in the Ultima segmentum, there's one in the Obscura segmentum. Gothic sector, then, is a sector that borders near to the Eye of Terror, and it's part of these kind of collection of fleets known as the Bastion fleets. And the battle fleet is made up of a number of battleships and cruisers and escort ships and frigates and destroyers, all, naval terms you might recognise, which are then under the command of an overall admiral. Admiral Ravenswood is the overall commander of Battlefleet Gothic. And when they decided to make a game set in kind of spaceship combat, they decided to pick this sector of space and tie it back into this old little bit of narrative lore that had been used in the preparation of the Chaos Codex. So, the narrative then, that is the Gothic War, which is also known as the 12th Great Black Crusade. And there's a lot of people I know who pour kind of salt on Abaddon and say, oh, it's 12 Crusades and you've still not managed everything. It's all part of a plan. So, The war in the Gothic sector, the Gothic War. It begins, as we saw in the Chaos Codex, with the invasion of Purgatory. Chaos Raiders break out of the Eye of Terror, descend upon the world of Purgatory, massacre every guardsman present there, destroy all the orbital defences, leave the planet a lifeless husk, and steal an artifact that even the Eldar apparently were afraid of, known as the Hand of Darkness. What is the Hand of Darkness? Well, I would assume it's a hand, but beyond that, we don't know. What we do discover, this isn't actually contained in the original Battlefleet Gothic lore, it was added to by Graham McNeill in some of his stories revolving around the Warsmith Honsu, is that a seer by the name of Mariana, who features in some of the later Horus Heresy novels, and is in fact one of the original Inquisitors under Malcador, before deciding to join the Forces of Chaos because, as a Horusian, she is convinced that only through utilising the power of Chaos that empowered Horus can mankind gain supremacy once more in the galaxy and overcome the waves of Xenos threats that are throwing themselves at it. But so, an Inquisitor, a fallen Inquisitor, some would say, a Horusian pledged to the cause of Chaos in the name of the greater good of the Imperium, nothing to do with the Tau here, informs Abaddon that he needs to obtain 2 artifacts if he is to succeed in his eventual goal of conquering the Imperium. One of them is the Hand of Darkness, which he goes to Purgatory, sends raiders to Purgatory, and they then massacre, as we have said, and capture it from there. Enter then the other kind of protagonist of this piece, the Inquisitor Horst. This is the Inquisitor who featured in the Chaos Codex and is now given a name and a bit of a backstory. He is aware of the presence of the Hand of Darkness and hurries there with a group of Ultramarines strike cruisers and Ultramarines warriors to ascertain if it's still there, discovers it's been stolen, and immediately knows that the other linked artifact is in danger, so makes his way to one of the Ratling homeworlds, Orn's world, also located in the Gothic sector, only to find that Abaddon has beaten him to it there as well. This is the other planet that Mariana has told Abaddon he needs to conquer, on which he will obtain an item known as the Eye of Night, Hand of Darkness, Eye of Night. This is a gem that's being used in a crude statue of loyalty to the Imperium by the Ratlings native to this little kind of Shire-like world. It's an eye embedded in the kind of socket of one of the eye sockets of this statue. Again, Chaos Warriors descend upon the world. The Ratlings try their best to hold them off with their little sniper rifles and slingshots and goats, and are massacred in their droves. Horst arrives too late to find that once again the forces of Chaos have successfully conquered this planet, captured the Eye of Night, and made off into the night once more. So this then kind of sets the scene for what is the greater meta-narrative of the Gothic War. And it's at this point that mass attacks by Chaos warships happens across the Gothic subsector, terrorising Imperial shipping, ravaging Imperial worlds, and really kind of stretching the resources of Battlefleet Gothic to the absolute limit. There is a suggestion that although the Chaos forces are more scattered, so that individually each individual fleet of Battlefleet Gothic is bigger than one of the Chaos raiding fleets that is on the Rampage. There are more Chaos raiding fleets on the Rampage around the Gothic sector than there are Imperial fleets, and so the Imperial fleets are kind of stretched thin, trying to fly hither and yon, trying to catch these Chaos fleets wherever they can find them, whilst the Chaos fleets use their longer ranged guns to attack the Imperial fleets before slipping back into the warp, or taking advantage of the warp storms that throw themselves up around the Gothic sector, preventing reinforcements initially from coming in from the Imperium as a larger force. Also, other Xenos races present within the sector then decide to take advantage of this, so Orc freebooter fleets that are hiding in various asteroid belts in systems or lurking on the occasional kind of Orc pirate-held world start making attacks of opportunity on Imperial merchantmen, causing worlds to suffer mass deprivation. There's one example in the background in the book of a world that doesn't have sufficient water to keep its citizens alive. Its water recycling facilities on this hive world are simply not up to the task task of keeping everyone hydrated, and attacks by orc freebooter raiding fleets on the merchantmen, not even seizing the goods, just leaving them blown up and scattered as clouds of ice in the void, caused millions of Imperial citizens to essentially die of dehydration on this planet because they cannot get the water to the planet that it needs. Eldar raiding fleets, like this shiny little fleet that I've been painting up over here. Meanwhile, pirate fleets and Dark Eldar slaver fleets start to, again, attack vulnerable Imperial worlds, taking advantage of it, and operating under their own, unique little objectives, guided by the Farseers of a craft world that is rumoured to be floating through the Gothic sector at this time. There's even attacks from an ancient pyramid-based race that no one had ever really seen before at this point, who appear out of nowhere and seem to just savage whichever fleet they happen to come across. And there's also a reference to a race that we never really see much more detail from, aside from a converted cruiser that was invented in one of the Fanatic magazines, the Fra'al. I love that word, Fra'al. The Fra'al, as mysterious Xenos race, also take advantage of this kind of ongoing strife and pitch into the attack. So that's kind of the scene as it is happening in the Gothic sector during this time. And war goes on for decades in this vein before Chaos unleash the next stage in their master plan. The Imperial fleet is kind of anchored throughout the Gothic sector. First of all, by a mass Imperial fleet base at the kind of sector capital, Port Moore, but then at 6 other battle stations placed around the Gothic sector that were created through the use of ancient alien sort of derelicts that had been left abandoned floating in space long before mankind even ventured into this section of space. They were first found there by the Crusader fleets of the Great Crusade, the Emperor's Great Crusade, when it ventured into this area of space. These are the Blackstone Fortresses, and I suspect those are terms that anybody who's played 40k now knows about. There's even a whole board game that you can play set inside one of them. But these ancient monolithic black pyramidal fortresses made with kind of long 4 pointed arms, docking arms extending out of them, were discovered floating derelict and empty in space. The Mechanicus couldn't fully access or understand the technology that was there, but they were at least able to access the power systems of these massive black stone fortresses and built upon them essentially Imperial fleet bases, so they would fit them with Imperial weapons, Imperial turrets kind of bolted on and built around the outside, wired into the internal power systems of the fortresses. And they kind of refitted the interiors of them with millions upon millions of fleet personnel and repair bays and loading bays and refueling sections, everything really necessary to anchor and support Battlefleet Gothic. Chaos then launched their first attack on one of these Blackstone Fortresses, Blackstone Fortress 6. The Imperium were fully expecting that they both had the full weight of the fleet guns mounted upon the fortress, as well as the subsector fleet that was present in the system at the time. They fully expected that they were going to be able to vanquish the Chaos force that came into the planetary sector. What they didn't expect was, as the Chaos fleet approached the Blackstone Fortress, all power on the Blackstone Fortress suddenly shut down. Guns wouldn't work, shields wouldn't raise, doors wouldn't open, oxygen recyclers wouldn't run. The fleet suddenly found themselves completely outnumbered. Previously, their entire battle plan based upon relying upon the giant stationary gun platforms mounted upon the Blackstone Fortress. They were suddenly cut apart at range by this Chaos raiding fleet and forced to retreat into the void, abandoning the millions of personnel that were left behind upon the Blackstone Fortress. When they were able to return to the subsector with the assistance of reinforcements from the other subsector fleets, they found not only was the planet now scoured bare to lifeless rock, but the Blackstone Fortress had disappeared. The Admiral Ravenswood then had to anticipate what the Chaos forces were up to and how they might have achieved this extraordinary success. He guessed that the Chaos Forces would seek to attack another Blackstone fortress in the same vein, and so mustered his fleets around the other Blackstone fortresses as best he could to try and defend them against a similar Chaos attack. He was right, but Blackstone Fortress 4 was the next one to come under attack by the Chaos Forces. Once again, though, despite all the efforts of the Mechanicum, the Blackstone Fortress's power systems just entirely shut down. Not only that, but accompanying this Chaos raiding fleet was the previously captured Blackstone Fortress, seemingly now moving under its own power. The Chaos Forces captured the second Blackstone Fortress, and then, in a shocking move, were able to combine the power systems of the two Blackstone Fortresses and fire into the star at the heart of the system, causing it to engage in mass coronal ejections that engulfed the two inner planets and fried the electronics on any number of the Imperial ships that had strayed too close to its Emsphere. Within a matter of days, the star went nova, destroying the entire star system. The Imperial fleet was forced to flee before it was destroyed, and the Chaos Forces retreated once more into the warp, taking a second Blackstone Fortress with them. To add to the Imperium's woes, it was at this point that an ominous new vessel made an appearance in the Chaos Fleets. This is something that is very clearly an homage to Star Wars, but appearing in the orbit around one of the Imperial worlds was a massive mutant ship that seemed to be composed almost entirely of gun barrels. One massive collection of gun barrels and lance batteries anchored around a strange, mysteriously glowing portal of black stone at its heart. This is the vessel that would simply be known as the Planet Killer. Its Imperial worlds had seen the power of exterminatus before, whether it's through virus bombing or magma bombs being used to pound and shatter the continents of a planet. But never before had the Imperium seen anything like the awesome destructive power of what the Mechanicum dubbed the Armageddon gun. This massive collection of lance batteries, when fired together, channeling the strange and esoteric energies from the Blackstone portal at the centre of the vessel, burned through the sort of continental plate of the target world down into the liquid mantle core, causing a huge mantle ejection into space and causing the planet to crack into just chunks of rubble floating in the void. Whereas an hour before there'd been a vibrant and living Imperial world, now there was just an asteroid belt in its orbit where it had been. This vessel then really was as destructive as the Blackstone Fortresses, except whereas the Blackstone Fortresses, Abaddon was using them for his own mysterious metaplot, the Planet Killer was purely used as a weapon of terror, advertising through the warp essentially which world it would target next, and allowing the demons of the warp and the warp energies of the warp storms to feast upon the kind of negative emotional energies of the target world citizens, knowing that they couldn't be evacuated in time and would be doomed. There's an amazing book by Gordon Reddy about this called, quite fittingly, Execution Hour, and then they did a sequel to that called Shadow Point, which maybe we'll do book club on those at some point, because they are great books to read. But so, whilst this was going on, Chaos fleets continued their attacks, launching another attack on a third Blackstone fortress. This time, however, the Imperium received support from an unexpected quarter. Aliens from the Eldar race appeared in system and attacked the Chaos fleet at a key moment, driving them back, but not before this third and final Blackstone fortress could be captured. The war continued even after that point, and although the Blackstone fortresses tried once again to imitate their previous success of driving a star nova, they were thwarted by incoming flotillas of Imperial reinforcements coming from outside the Gothic sector from the wider Segmentum Obscurus. And it was this eventually that turned the tide against Abaddon and brought the 12th Great Black Crusade to an end, and brought the Gothic War, as it's known, to an end. With one small exception, a kind of a coda, really, to how the war would end. After the capture of the third Blackstone fortress, the remaining three were spontaneously destroyed. It was like one moment they were there, they were still operational, the next they just crumbled down into small fragments of Blackstone, venting their atmosphere and their complement of Imperial crewmen into the void. Abaddon was able to escape with 2 out of the 3 Blackstone fortresses in the end. On his 3rd attempt to use the Blackstone fortresses to send another Star Nova, again, intervention by Eldar forces and then Space Marine battle barges coming from the outside the Gothic sector to reinforce Battlefleet Gothic, destroyed the 3rd Blackstone Fortress, Blackstone Fortress 1, as it was known, before he could escape with it. But 2 of these Blackstone fortresses he was able to retreat to the Eye of Terror with. It is hypothesized that these Blackstone fortresses are a relic left over from the War in Heaven, that these were created essentially by the Old Ones, the race that created the Orcs and the Eldar and other summonery races in their war against the Necrontyr. What is known then is this. Of the 2 Blackstone fortresses which Abaddon retreated to the Eye of Terror with, they were to play a key role in bringing about the Imperium as we know it today. The first of these Blackstone fortresses was essentially used as a bribe to the tyrant of Badab, Luft-Huron, the Lord of the Maelstrom himself. Perhaps only second only to Abaddon in terms of the greatest living Chaos Space Marine commander at that time. His loyalty was bought with the provision of one of these Blackstone fortresses as a mobile fleet base on which he could continue his war against the Imperium. And in fact, it was this Blackstone fortress that he would take during the Terran Crusade, during the attack on Terra itself, during the final days of the 41st millennium. The second Blackstone fortress had perhaps an even more devastating effect upon the Imperium, though. Abaddon took the second Blackstone fortress to the fortress world of Cadia. This had long stood at the entrance to the Eye of Terror, a bulwark, the linchpin really of the Bastion worlds surrounding the Eye of Terror, from which the Imperium had used the fortress fleets, the entire chapters of Space Marines dedicated to ensuring that the traitor legions as much as possible stayed within the Eye of Terror. Cadia itself seemed to have a restraining effect upon the Eye of Terror, holding it back and preventing it from spreading across the galaxy at large. This was suggested by Inquisitor Cryptman to be down to the Blackstone pylons that were scattered across Cadia and seemed to have a nullifying effect upon the warp. Abaddon fought Blackstone with Blackstone. Bringing his final Blackstone fortress to Cadia, he didn't use its guns to try and burn the world clear as he'd done in the Gothic War. Instead, he physically pitched the Blackstone fortress down through Cadia's atmosphere, smashing it into the planet and breaking it asunder, destroying it once and forever, and removing it as an impediment towards that massive warp storm that is the Eye of Terror. It was his capture of the Blackstone fortress during the Gothic War, during that 12th Black Crusade then, that enabled him to create the Great Rift that even now wrenches its way across the 40k galaxy, universe, 40k galaxy. It is directly as a result of his victories in the Gothic War that we now have Imperium Nihilus and the Imperium Primus, the Imperium Sanctus. It is because of that everything else that kind of came as a result of that, the resurrection, I suppose, of Guilliman, all the other storylines that grow out of that massive event of the 13th Black Crusade, only took place because of the successes that he had during the Gothic War. And those successes in the Gothic War only in turn were able to be possible because of the advice of the Seeress, Moriana, and his capture of the Hand of Darkness and the Eye of Night. Those two little bits of lore, just tucked away in that second edition Chaos book, grew amazing fruit that gives us the 41st millennium, or 42nd millennium now as we are, that we know and love today. So, Battlefleet Gothic, it's a game that is steeped really in 40k lore. It's got some amazing ships. I'm hoping at some point in the future to do another video battle reporting through a game between my Eldar fleet and my Imperium fleet. I hope you've enjoyed this video though, listening to me rabbit on about the lore of Battlefleet Gothic. If you do, please click subscribe, click like, and perhaps take a look through the back catalogue and see if there's anything else in there that tickles your fancy. Thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you next time. Bye for now.